crisis talks, soaring gas prices and another energy company asking for a bailout. Just how many of these businesses will be left standing by the end of the year? Plus the PM in New York for a key summit somewhat overshadowed by a row over submarine contracts. We'll ask today's Government Minister James Cleverly about all of that in just a moment. Also, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is on the programme for us. And this morning, we'll talk to the former Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, on the call to save 100 million COVID jabs being thrown away for being out of date by the end of the year. That is at 7:30. And
we are running out of time.
And there's one industry that's contributing more to our destruction than any other.
Counting the cost of our food at 9:45, joined by the documentary maker who says we're eating our way to extinction. It's Monday, the 20th of September. Trying to keep the lights on, one of Britain's biggest energy suppliers seeks to bail out as surging gas prices force the government to hold crisis talks with the industry. Keeping climate promises, Boris Johnson arrives in New York for a UN summit and urges rich nations to meet their $100 billion pledge to the developing world.
We've made a big pledge. We've already greatly reduced our CO2, but we need other countries to step up to the plate, the big emitters around the world.
Attacking the new job head-on, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss to call on Iran for the immediate release of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. We'll speak to her husband this hour. Murder squad detectives called to a house in Derbyshire after 4 people are found dead. Developing story will bring you the very latest in just a moment. Lava alert, people evacuated as a volcano erupts on the Spanish island of La Palma.
And I'll bring you all of the action from the Emmy Awards, including Michaela Cole's big win on what was a big night for British talent.
I dedicate this story to every single survivor of sexual assaults. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. Crisis talks will be held today on how to help save the UK's energy industry after another company asked for a bailout last night to help it weather the storm of soaring wholesale gas prices. There are fears over how many energy companies can make it to the end of the year. UK energy company Bulb is seeking a bailout to stay afloat. It comes as wholesale gas has shot up by 250% since January, and 4 small energy companies have already folded. Meanwhile, a shortage of carbon dioxide is also affecting food supplies, with the owners of the UK's biggest poultry company warning it could affect the number of turkeys available for Christmas. Joined now by the Minister for the Middle East and Africa, James Cleverly, representing the government this morning. Hello to you, Mr. Cleverly. Thank you for joining us on the programme. What is the plan to save the gas industry?
Well, Kwasi Kwarteng, the energy minister, the business minister, has had a series of meetings with the industry to ensure that the consumers here in the UK are protected, and they're protected both from the increase potentially in gas prices through the energy price cap that we have in place, but also to ensure that we have continuity of supply. And the message that he's put out, and he put out a series of tweets that people can look at if they wish to, is that because of the mix of where we get our energy from, we are in a better place than many other countries that are also feeling the pinch from this increase in wholesale gas supply. And that we will absolutely do everything we can to protect consumers, to make sure we have a vibrant energy supply market.
55 businesses, I believe, in the sector, according to this morning's front page of the Financial Times. There could only be 6 to 10 left by the end of the year, that according to the industry. This is pretty grim stuff.
Well, as I say, the business secretary has already had a series of meetings. He will be having others, I am certain. And what we are doing is working to ensure that we do 2 things, and that is to protect consumers from what has been a global increase in gas prices, but also to ensure the security of energy supply and energy provision to those consumers. And we're in pretty good place here in the UK because, of course, we have our own domestic gas supply, but we also receive gas from really very reliable partners like Norway, for example. So we're in a better place than many other countries around the world.
Will the government bail out small suppliers who are in danger of going bust?
Well, as I say, the Business Secretary has had and will continue to have meetings with the sector. The priority is to make sure that we protect provision for consumers and to ensure that they aren't hit by unforeseeable or unpredictable a significant increase in gas prices. And those discussions will be ongoing. Exactly how we do that will be up for discussion, of course, but those are our priorities.
So that's not a no then, is it? I mean, if we see all these businesses starting to potentially go bust, in order to try to protect people's gas supplies, the government's going to have to step in and help them, aren't they?
Well, as I say, I'm not going to speculate as to exactly how we do this, but I can assure you that the conversations that the Business Secretary has already had have been very productive, and we will ensure the protection of consumers, as I say, from the price inflations that we're seeing all over the world, but also we're very, very conscious of the importance of protecting that energy supply as well.
So, again, the article that I'm referring to, I'm sure you've seen it on the front of the FT this morning, talks about a northern-style bad bank where if there are lots of people whose gas suppliers are going under, they all need to be put under one umbrella, protected by the state, in order to make sure that all of the other businesses don't go under as well. I'm guessing that just good governance means that you have to be looking at something like that.
Well, as I say, we're considering the options, and I'm not going to speculate as to exactly how we address this, but we've moved quickly. The Business Secretary, as I say, has already had a series of meetings about this, both last week and over the weekend, and we've got a very clear idea of what our priorities need to be in terms of protecting consumers and protecting the security of our energy supply.
So you're not ruling it out then?
Okay, you keep asking me and I keep giving you the same answer. We are considering a range of options. The Business Secretary has met with the energy supply companies, and our priorities are to protect consumers and also to protect the security of our energy supply. And we will look at a range of options, no doubt, but I'm not going to rule anything in or commit to anything here on your show this morning, I'm afraid.
OK, let me try from a different angle. I'm sure my viewers are very anxious this morning about what's going to happen as far as their gas is concerned, or energy bills are concerned, when they hear that of 55 companies, only 6 to 10 could be left standing by the end of the year. How potentially might the public be expected to pay for that? There is an energy price cap of £139 for next month. Could that go higher?
Well, the energy price cap is there not to completely prevent energy prices ever going up, but it's about making sure that there are no sudden, unexpected, unpredictable big hikes in prices. So the energy price cap has always been designed to move gently upwards. But the big thing is to prevent, as I say, big, unpredictable spikes in consumer prices. The other thing, of course, that the government has put in is a whole series of measures to protect the poorest families in the country through things like winter fuel support, and also to make it easier for people to switch providers to get the best deal. So, as I say, our priority remains to protect consumers and also to protect the security of our energy supply.
So just to clarify, that £139 lift cap for next month, that is going to stay at that until 6 months' time when you look at it again?
Yeah, as I say, it's about providing predictability for consumers, and that the energy price cap policy is in place. It has protected hundreds of thousands of consumers already and will continue to do so.
OK, how worried are we about food supplies and the like, and concerns about carbon dioxide? It's a little bit complicated, but just for the benefit of our viewers this morning, we haven't got enough carbon dioxide. It could mean that animal husbandry is a challenge over the next couple of weeks, and also some operations within the NHS. Now, I found it surprising that you need carbon dioxide for some NHS hospital operations, apparently, but you do. What is being put in place by the government to make sure that that supply is sorted out?
Well, the points that you raise, once again, we find ourselves in a situation that many countries in the world are experiencing. The logistics industry, which underpins a lot of the movement of products like CO2, we know the situation there. And what we're looking to do is twofold. Firstly, is to make sure that in the medium term and beyond, that the UK is increasingly self-sufficient in terms of things like food production, but also in terms of people in the logistics chain, HGV drivers, that kind of stuff. And in the shorter term, obviously, we are looking cross-government at what we need to do to address what might be some short-term shortages in these things. Again, these are things that we're discussing. We discuss them with the industry. We discuss them cross-government. And we will ensure that we are able to put food on the tables. Obviously, that is a real priority. And as I say, we're looking cross-government on how we address this.
OK, so Alok Sharma has been talking about it, as you say. You've quoted him several times during the course of the interview. He's pretty relaxed about things at the moment. Prime Minister on his way to New York, less relaxed, saying that there will be some supply shortages. Where are you sitting on that scale?
Well, we already know that right across the world we have seen, for example, HGV drivers, and it's not unique to the UK, a shortage of HGV drivers. As I say, we are taking measures to address that. You say about the Prime Minister travelling to New York, and a big part of the work he is going to do there is actually to get the world focused on some of the issues that we have to address collectively to make sure that we have things like food security in the future. And addressing climate change is a really important part of that. And that's very much part of the conversations that he'll be having over in New York at the United Nations General Assembly.
He's taken Liz Truss with him. She says that one of her main issues is to try and get Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe and the other Brits out of Iran. Where will she succeed where 3 previous foreign secretaries have failed?
Well, we are absolutely determined to get back all the British dual nationals currently held in arbitrary detention by Iran. She's having meetings with her Iranian opposite number, and that will be the release of our dual nationals will very much be at the top of the agenda. It always is when we have negotiations with the Iranians. And we will continue pushing, and we will not rest until we get them all home. Their incarceration is arbitrary, it's completely unjustified, and we have made it clear that we will not stop working to get those British dual nationals home.
How confident are you that your new boss will succeed there where others have failed?
Well, it is never easy negotiating with the Iranian leadership, but I have no doubt that she will. She's an incredibly focused and energetic minister. She's well regarded for that, and I have no doubt that she will apply that energy to these negotiations. And we will continue pushing and pushing and pushing until we get our British dual nationals home.
Are you confident that she'll be able to succeed this time?
Well, I can speculate, but what's the point in speculating? The point is that we raise this whenever we have meetings with the Iranian leadership. We will keep pushing on this. We will explore what avenues can be taken to get our British dual nationals home, all of our British dual nationals home.
How anxious are you that we've upset the French to such an extent over this submarine deal that they've called off talks, defence talks scheduled for later on in the week? Well, the agreement that we have come to with the United States of America and Australia about submarine manufacture is not about France. It is about our very strong relationship with the United States of America and Australia. It's about reinforcing an incredibly important and strong defence relationship. And it is also about making sure that we have high-tech manufacturing jobs here in the UK. That's what this is about. Obviously, with
any international relationship, there are ups and downs, and I am no doubt that we will ultimately resolve any frictions that there are currently with France. But this is actually about making sure that A, we are protected, and B, that we are closely aligned with two of our strongest and most long-standing defence and security partners in the world.
But the French are a key defence ally, aren't they? And they are so offended that they've recalled two of their ambassadors from Australia and from the US and called off key defence talks here in the UK later on this week. There's going to have to be some key discussions going on with the French in order to try to bring them back on side. Why don't we just include them in the conversation to start with?
Well, as I say, this agreement was about our relationship, our defence relationship with the United States of America and Australia. And
I'm sorry, with respect, it wasn't really, was it? What we did was they'd done a deal with the Aussies and we said we can offer you a better deal and our submarines are better, so forget about that deal that you've done and we'll sell you ours instead. Don't tell the French.
Well, I think viewers would be amazed if they didn't think that the UK was a competitive and say internationally engaged country. That's what we are. That's what we do. We made our position absolutely clear that this is global Britain. We're engaging with the world, and we are working with our partners all across the world, including the United States of America, including Australia. This is an incredibly important
cleverly. We literally pulled the rug from under them. They had a deal, 40-odd billion quid's worth. Quid's worth. And we pulled the rug from under them. We said, don't do that deal with them. We've got better ones than they have.
Well, the contractual relationship between Australia and France is for Australia and France. What this is about is the UK being engaged with two of our longest standing and closest defence partners in the world. It's about making sure that the world is kept safe, and it's about making sure that we support the manufacturing industry, the high-tech manufacturing industry here in the UK and every part of the UK, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and all parts of the UK, including the Midlands and the north of England. So this is about that. And as I say, the relationship between, or the contractual relationship between Australia and France is something that they will have to discuss.
OK, finally, before I let you go, you can accept why the French are a little bit miffed with us this morning, though.
As I say, this is about our defence and security, and this is about making sure that the UK government supports UK businesses in every part of the UK. That's what this is about. OK. Good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on the programme. Hopefully you'll come and see us next time. It's good to see you, Mr. Cleverly, always. Thank you. Our correspondent Aisha Zaid is at the Oval Gasworks for us. So once one of the the biggest gasworks in the world. She's with us now. Hello to you. Good morning. Good morning. Big problems with gas supplies.
Yeah, absolutely. Really worrying for energy firms. We know two have already gone bust, and Bulb have said that they are seeking a bailout to stay afloat now. It comes amid these prices rising. They've increased by 250% since the year began. And since August alone, the price increase has been 70%. It comes down to a number of factors. First of all, a colder winter last year has been blamed for depleting stocks, as well as an increased demand in gas from Asia, while there's been a decrease in supply from Russia. And it's energy firms feeling the brunt of this, but there is a spillover effect with the food industry feeling knock-on effects from all of it. The food retailers and food producers have warned that Christmas dinner could be cancelled this year amid shortages of foods, including chicken and turkey. And that's an indirect effect of these gas price hikes, because two fertiliser plants in the UK have had to cease production, and they produce a byproduct of carbon dioxide, which is needed with various food processes. OK, thanks for the update. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Front page of the Financial Times this morning suggesting that we could be left with between 6 and 10 energy companies by the end of the year. Presently, we have 55. 4 have gone under in the last month alone. What on earth is going on? We'll be talking about that, throughout the course of the programme for you here on Sky News today. And as we were discussing there also with Mr Cleverly, the Prime Minister is in the Big Apple for a key UN summit. Despite that row over submarine contracts, he's got tackling climate change on his mind, as our political editor, Beth Rigby, reports from New York.
Coming into land in New York, the UK Prime Minister's first trip overseas since the start of the pandemic, back to the city of his birth for the United Nations General Assembly, a global gathering of politicians facing global challenges, and the PM tasked with trying to galvanise action on perhaps the biggest of them all, climate change.
This is a crucial summit, absolutely crucial for the next couple of months. It's only a couple of months now till the COP26 summit, and so we need everybody to focus on what's called their nationally determined contributions. That's the amount of carbon dioxide each country is going to cut. The UK is way out in front, or well, is doing very well. We've made a big pledge. We've already greatly reduced our CO2, but we need other countries to step up to the plate, the big emitters around the world.
The US one of those emitters, and the PM here to line up hard cash, but nothing is guaranteed. Boris Johnson is known for his tendency to overpromise, but at this critical summit in New York, which one officials described to me as an important staging post on the way to COP, he's been uncharacteristically downbeat about the prospect of securing financial commitments from other developed nations to help tackle climate change. Perhaps he's learnt the art of expectation management. More likely, he knows just how difficult truly global agreement will be. Relations between Boris Johnson and Joe Biden have been strained in recent weeks over the chaotic evacuation from Kabul. This their first face-to-face meeting since the withdrawal, and a test of the PM's diplomacy.
When push comes to shove, Mr. Johnson is a tough, pragmatic politician who knows how to get from A to B. And in that respect, not many people might admit it, in that respect, he's not dissimilar to President Biden.
From the NHS and social care plan to the cabinet reshuffle, the PM has set out his domestic agenda in the past few weeks. This week, here, his attention turns to international ambitions. Beth Rigby, Sky News, New York.
Of course, we'll monitor what the Prime Minister has to say when he wakes up in New York in just a few hours' time. Let me just show you our climate change indicator board, though. Top line, there you go, shows how the UK's power is produced. And, 64% fossil fuels today. That's quite high. It's not normally that high, is it? And you can see how much warmer the Earth is now than in 1880. That's the second row for you. That's when modern records began in 1880. Then the figure to how long scientists believe it will take to reach the plus 1.5 degrees Celsius figure, seen by many as a point of no return for the planet. That's the third row. And finally, a huge and frightening statistic, the total amount of CO2 emissions in millions of tonnes. And you can keep up with all of the stories affected by climate change on the Daily Climate Show, right here live on Sky News every weekday at 6:30. Spectacular pictures reaching us from the Canary Islands today on the island of La Palma. It's been setting the sky alight overnight. These are live pictures for you. Jets of lava have been erupting into the air along with plume of smoke and ash. It follows a week-long build-up of seismic activity, prompting authorities to evacuate thousands. Lava flows destroyed isolated houses and threatened to reach the coast. No injuries, have been reported at this stage. Still to come on the programme for you. A warning that 100 million COVID cabs, or should that be jabs, could go to waste at 7:30. I'll be joined by the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown as he calls on world leaders to avoid vaccine disaster by throwing the doses away. The Foreign Secretary will use a meeting with the Iranian Foreign Minister today to call the immediate release of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. Going to be speaking to her husband Richard at 7:35. And at 8:20, we'll speak to the Chief Exec of the British Meat Processors Association on what the shortage of carbon dioxide means for food supply in the run-up to Christmas. Also making news for you this morning, and a man has been arrested after 4 people were found dead at a house near Sheffield. Derbyshire police said they were called to an address on Chandos Crescent in Killamarsh yesterday morning. Police have urged anyone with information about the incident to come forward. Folic acid is to be added to flour across the UK in a drive to reduce life-threatening spinal conditions in babies. The government has said that adding vitamin B to wholemeal wheat flour could help prevent around 200 cases a year. The body's been found matching the description of the missing blogger Gabby Petito in the US state of Wyoming. The 22-year-old had been on a road trip with her boyfriend, but her family reported her missing when Mr. Laundrie returned home without her earlier this month. He also disappeared days later after being declared a person of interest in the case. Harvey Weinstein will be brought before a court in Los Angeles today to face 10 sexual assault charges. The disgraced film producer is currently serving a 23-year sentence for sexual assault, but has been extradited from New York to California to face a new criminal complaint containing allegations from 5 women between 2004 and 2013. Now, it's been a huge night for UK talent at one of TV's glitziest events, the Emmys. Overnight in the US, Kate Winslet, Michaela Cole and Olivia Colman have all picked up awards for I May Destroy You, The Crown and Sky's Mayor of Easttown. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer stayed up all night to watch the proceedings and has this report.
Michaela Cole.
It was arguably the win of the night. Not an easy watch, but Michaela Cole's hard-hitting drama I May Destroy You thoroughly deserved its writing recognition in a night dominated by British talent.
I dedicate this story to every single survivor of sexual assaults. Thank you.
Just like the old days, the glamour was back. The A-listers packed in together.
We had to get Vax to come here, you know what I mean? I got Vax. I did not have a reaction like Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend, okay?
Among all those men, I don't mind it.
While Netflix's most watched series to date, The Queen's Gambit, won Outstanding Limited Series.
The one thing that no algorithm can predict and no billion-dollar budget can manufacture is word of mouth.
Just 6 months between us.
Oh? And who is the senior?
I am. Ma'am.
It was a night of royal deference, with The Crown taking home Outstanding Drama Series and awards for the actors who played Prince Charles, Margaret Thatcher and the Queen.
Olivia Colman, The Crown.
An emotional ending for Olivia Colman, who now leaves the show.
I wish my dad was here to see this. So, I lost my daddy during COVID, and he would have loved all of this.
Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor was recognised for his acting in fashion drama Halston, as was Kate Winslet for Sky Atlantic's gritty crime drama Mayor of Easttown.
I just want to acknowledge my fellow nominees in this decade that has to be about women having each other's backs. I support you, I salute you.
Not only a great night for homegrown talent, with broadcasters and streaming services having clocked record audience figures during the pandemic, this was a celebration of everything that's kept us going. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
The government says it's considering a range of options as the energy companies face a crisis amid surging wholesale gas prices. Speaking to the programme in the last hour, the Foreign Office Minister James Cleverly refused to rule anything out but set out the government's priorities to protect consumers and supply.
We are considering a range of options. The business sector has met with the energy supply companies, and our priorities are to protect consumers and also to protect the security of our energy supply. And we'll look at a range of options, no doubt, but I'm not going to rule anything in or commit to anything.
Tamara's here. I think he rather underestimated, potentially, some would say, the level of threat to the industry.
Yes, absolutely. The headlines all dominated by this huge rise in global gas prices and what it means for consumers. Even Boris Johnson, on his way to New York, was asked about it, and he said that it would be temporary as we come out of COVID. The Prime Minister compared it to everyone switching the kettle on after a TV programme had finished. But this is deadly serious for the energy companies because they have got this price cap that the government introduced. So our bills are all going to go up by around £140 next month. Not going to go higher than that. And for a lot of people, that will be a huge amount. But the energy companies are saying that because of these enormous prices they're having to pay for wholesale, that simply isn't enough, with predictions that almost all of the energy companies, including some of the bigger ones, could go bust by the end of the year. And we're already seeing industry sources saying that in these talks with the government, which Mr Cleverly said will be continuing today, they want not just loans, but a full Northern Rock-style, financial crisis-style bailout, with perhaps even what they're calling a bad bank, so a sort of lender of last resort set up for all those customers whose energy companies can no longer provide for them. So some big questions from government about what sort of infrastructure they might need to set up around this, even if it's temporary, may take weeks or months to sort out.
And as far as Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe is concerned, we've got a new Foreign Secretary just in post for a few days, already in New York with the Prime Minister, already having talks with the Iranians later on today. How confident was Mr Cleverly that something might come of it?
Well, Liz Truss has already spoken to Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe's husband, Richard, only 3 days into the job. She's meeting with the Iranian foreign minister in the margins of this UN summit. That will be the first foreign minister-level meeting for 3 years. How can she succeed where previous foreign secretaries have failed? She says she'll again call for the immediate release of British detainees in Iran, but there's been no mention so far of this £400 million debt, which the Iranians are linking to her continued detention. The government always says is not linked.
OK. For now, Tamara, thank you. Tamara's take at 9 o'clock this morning, of course, here on the programme. So Liz Truss speaking to Richard Ratcliffe earlier in the week. Let's speak to him now, should we? Nazanin's husband. Hello to you, Richard. Always good to talk to you. You managed to have a chat with the new Foreign Secretary. How confident are you that she will be able to do something that others have failed?
Thank you. You're right. I was very pleased to be able to speak to her yesterday. She called me at the airport on her way to New York. She'll be meeting with the Iranian foreign minister today. And in all honesty, I don't think she knows quite how it's going to go. And certainly from here, I don't think we know either. There's been lots of foreign secretaries have met with the Iranians. Lots of negotiations have been happening, particularly the past year, very intensively. And I spoke to the former Foreign Secretary about a month ago, where he said, listen, we got really close, but we didn't get it over the line. So I think there's been a change of leadership in Iran as well. We need to see where things are and whether things are kind of where they were, in which case it could be quite hopeful, or whether they've slipped back a long way. I sit here, obviously, we've had a lot of up and downs, so not very confident, preparing as to whether we need to go tough or not. And obviously over the weekend, we sent in a request to the Foreign Office to sanction some Iranians involved in hostage taking. So clearly we were feeling, and we are feeling, that this may have a while to run still.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, Richard, how do you stop yourself from feeling we've been here before?
Yeah, well, that's right. We have. There have been lots of ups and downs, and this is our fifth Foreign Secretary, so lots of new starts. I think I felt. Often when you meet the minister for the first time, they're quite cautious and guarded. In fairness to Liz Truss, she was quite open. Let me speak and explain. This is what I think needs to happen, and it was, as you laid out there, a mixture of carrot and stick. She needs to address the underlying issues, but she also needs to make sure that Iran doesn't carry on practicing hostage diplomacy. But yeah, we've had a lot of ups and downs. It's coming up to 2,000 days, which is 5.5 years this week. So part of me is keeping going in case things drag on.
Yeah, 3,000 days, I think, on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, Richard. How's she coping?
You were actually more reassured following the phone call I had with the new Foreign Secretary. Bereft is perhaps too strong, but certainly very disoriented last week when there was a cabinet reshuffle. Dominic Raab had over the time built up a good relationship with her, and when she got taken in, when convicted back in the spring, phoned her up a couple of times and just let her cry at him for an extended period. So I think she had felt that he was really on the case, and now. With a new person, it takes time to build. But in Iran, nothing's actually happened recently. She was convicted. She is due to go back to prison, but we're waiting for an appeal date before that gets confirmed. That appeal hasn't been scheduled now for a number of months. So, it's an uncertain time, and there are moments where she can feel very low, but moments where also she just lives day to day.
So Dominic Raab had spoken to her and listened to her and just let her vent her emotion. Sadly, still couldn't bring her home. How's the baby coping?
Gabrielle's getting bigger. Like all things, there are days where she wants her mummy. That's partly just, our special situation, partly just wanting a second opinion from Daddy when he was suggesting bedtime. She's okay. It was tough around when the end of Nazanin's sentence and her mum didn't come back, and we built a countdown for that. When we do the 2,000 days and she comes to that, then it'll be a bit tough. But generally, we try not to expose her too much to what's going on.
And how are you doing?
Actually, more upbeat than I was a couple of days back. I think as you said on the show that Liz Truss spoke to us with 3 days into the job. That's the earliest we've ever been spoken to as a foreign secretary. It felt a positive sign that she did it, and the fact that she was open felt a positive sign. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in New York. I suspect the government doesn't at this stage. We'll be ready to push on if we need to, but hopefully we won't need to. So more positive than I was a couple of days back.
I was going to say, and how are you really doing?
It's obviously been a long haul. And hopefully it will end soon. I rely on an awful lot of people to keep me supported, both people at work and family and so on. I'm very grateful to all the support we've received.
We're always here to have a chat. If you want to give us a call at any time, Richard, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Welcome on the show whenever. Talk about Prince Andrew. He's been accused of actively evading formal efforts to serve him with a lawsuit on behalf of Virginia Giuffre, who has accused him of battery and intentional infliction of emotional distress over alleged misconduct from about 2 decades ago. The Prince denies all of the allegations against him, joined now by the solicitor and legal commentator, Joshua Rosenberg. Hello to you, Joshua. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Where are we with this case?
Well, we're waiting to see what happens in New York. There's been this very unseemly row over whether Prince Andrew has been properly served with the court papers. In other words, whether they've been formally delivered to him or not. And it's got very complicated, but I think it boils down to the very simple fact that the judge will decide that because Prince Andrew was represented by a lawyer at the hearing last week, it's simple enough to send those papers to his lawyer, and that will be sufficient to ensure that he is aware of the case. Of course he is aware of the case. We're all aware of the case. The court papers are very widely circulated.
I mean, there's, the stunt that we were looking at there, where they they took a photograph of putting the documents in the post. That, of course, was for the benefit of the media. But her team does say they've gone an awful long way to try to serve the Prince. What actually has to happen in order for the case to proceed further?
There's the easy way and the aggressive way. The easy way is for the defendant, in this case Prince Andrew, to tell his lawyers to accept service of the claim. That means it's just sent to the lawyers by post, by email. It's all private, no stunts, and the case can then proceed. There's the difficult way, which is to say, I didn't receive it, I wasn't at home, you need to prove that it was handed to me or my representative, and so on. And that's fine as part of litigation. That's the sort of thing that litigation lawyers do. They want to appear tough to the other side. They don't want to make it easy at the start because they want the upper hand in any future settlement settlement negotiations. Now, that worked in many cases, but it doesn't look good in this case, where you have a member of the royal family who seems to be avoiding this very formal and trivial matter, really, of the documents that he's read and knows all about being formally delivered to him.
So he's gone to Balmoral, at least for now. Papers being delivered by a PI or whoever at the place in Windsor. They're saying, go away, he's not here, go away, he's not here. Oh, don't know who he is, sorry. Then we see his lawyer in LA being told by the judge, who's getting more and more frustrated, you accept the papers on his behalf because I've had enough of this. If they don't, at some stage, they have to accept that he has been served, don't they? So then what happens next?
The court can certainly decide that he has been served because the papers will have been sent to this entertainment lawyer, Ratcliffe, he's based in Los Angeles, as you say. And then the case goes on. Now, there are all sorts of questions coming up as to the legal tactics that may be involved. The Prince is saying that Virginia Giuffre did some sort of deal in which she agreed that she wouldn't claim against anybody else because of a previous settlement. That's a private deal. We don't know what it says. We don't know what its relevance will be. And the case proceeds. We haven't really got off the starting block at the moment because of this rather unseemly dispute over whether the documents have been served to him. But I think at some point in the future, the Prince's lawyers will decide that the best thing to do is to enter into negotiations. Now, you don't want to show any sign of weakness, and of course, you've got to tough it out until the last possible moment. But I can't see the Duke of York wanting to go to New York and give oral evidence before a jury. I can see all sorts of unexpected and adverse consequences of that. And so I presume that at some point, the lawyers will negotiate a deal.
Yeah, I think this is going to run and run for a while, though, don't you, Joshua?
That depends on the lawyers, and that depends on the approach that they take, and of course it depends on the instructions that they are given by their client. You can never tell with a case like this whether it's the lawyers encouraging the client to do something or the client encouraging the lawyers to do something. But I think that a lot of people, and we saw a report yesterday of this in Buckingham Palace, are concerned at the way this is playing out in the media, and a lot of people want a rather different approach by his lawyers, and if he can't get his lawyers to agree to a different approach, maybe he needs different lawyers.
OK, a very interesting point. It's always great to see you. Thank you very much indeed, Joshua. Thank you. Of course, we will monitor every twist and turn on that story for you. Also want to bring you up to date with what is happening with the pandemic COVID-19. Latest data for the UK, and it's looking something like this. A further 29,600 new cases of coronavirus reported in the latest 24-hour period. A further 56 people have died, sadly, after contracting COVID. Takes the total number of people who've died within 28 days of a positive test to just over 135,000. More than 25,000 first doses of the COVID vaccine were given yesterday. 71,000 people received their second dose. Almost 44.5 million people are now fully vaccinated. Well, the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown is warning 100 million doses of the COVID vaccine will expire by December and could be thrown away. He's urging world leaders to create a plan to prevent the jams being wasted as they prepare to meet for a global vaccine summit later this week. Mr. Brown is with us now. Hello to you, Mr. Brown. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. What are you hoping for from this emergency summit?
Good morning, Kate. Well, we have a plan and we get the vaccines out to those people who need them. So only 2% of Africa vaccinated, only 2% of low-income countries. It's in our interest in Britain that they are vaccinated because the disease will spread in Africa, it will mutate and there'll be new variants. It will come back to haunt even the fully vaccinated in Britain unless we take action. So we've been stockpiling vaccines. We've got a mountain of vaccines in America and in Europe. They're not going to be used even when we do the boosters and the 12 to 15-year-olds. There are still millions of vaccines left over, and we've got to get them to the rest of the world. Otherwise, they're going to pass their use-by date and expire and be of no use to anybody. And all of us hate waste.
So I don't understand why it's not as easy as opening up the belly of a British Airways jet, putting them on board and taking them down to Joburg.
Well, you've done charity work in Africa, Kay, and you know that there's a desperate need to get the vaccines into Africa as quickly as possible, and that's what should be being done. And so in June, they had a plan that they would give dose share, as they called it. When they had excess vaccines, they'd pass them over. But it hasn't really happened enough, and yet there's all these vaccines lying in warehouses or on contract for delivery to Britain, America, and Europe, and yet we don't need them. So we've got to get them out as quickly as possible. Wednesday's summit should agree a plan, and it's in everybody's interest, our interest, to protect ourselves as well as to help people in other countries.
Do you have a plan? Do you know how we should do it?
Yep, my plan is that this month we could transfer 300 million vaccines. That's from America and Europe. By next month, there could be 500 million, and by December, 1 billion. And so we need to get all the resources at our disposal to airlift them, to get them out to the countries that need them, get the vaccinations happening, and provide some support. As you know, Kay, from your visits to Africa, we need to give help to administer the vaccines as well. But that's something we've also put in train. And I've been working with the World Health Organization and other organizations to make that happen as quickly as possible.
Do we have enough people? Because that was going to be my next point. You know, we're struggling as far as the NHS is concerned here. We haven't got any people that we can send to put these jabs in people's arms. So what do? We get the vaccines there. They're all there on the runway. Then what do we do with them?
Well, there's hundreds of thousands of health workers in the low-income countries and across Africa. They've not even been vaccinated yet. You know, to vaccinate all the health workers is a huge task. So that's got to happen quickly. Because they're risking their lives to save lives. Then we get to the vulnerable elderly, and then we get to the rest of the population, so that Africa and low-income countries can also go back to work. They're suffering because massive unemployment as well as massive poverty as a result of this. I fear that unless we take this action, then Africa could become the centre for COVID. And if in future you have new variants and mutations coming out of Africa, then it really will hurt the rest of the world. So it's in Africa's interest, it's in our interest. Yes, you can devise a plan very quickly. And Wednesday's summit, they shouldn't go around the table saying, congratulating themselves on what they're doing. They should go around the table and say, let's get a plan and let's get all these surplus vaccines out there and get them used. Because as I say, what I hate most of all about this is waste. Because we've got genius of scientists, we've got the manufacturers in delivering 1.5 billion vaccines a month, and then they're lying in warehouses and not being used. That's not good enough. And we in Britain and people in America and Europe have got to get their vaccines out to people who need them.
As you say, and has often been quoted as saying, nobody's safe unless everybody's safe. One wonders why all of these vaccines are going to waste. We seem to have stalled here in the United Kingdom in making sure that people are double vaccinated. I was looking at the figures this morning. Less than 2/3 of the British public have been fully vaccinated. We used to lead Europe, and now we're something like 7th, 8th, Portugal, Spain, lots of other European countries ahead of us. What's happened?
Well, in America and in Europe, as well as in Britain, there is resistance among some people to vaccinate. And I want to appeal to everybody who's not been vaccinated to get vaccinated. And that helps them, it helps their families, it helps protect our communities. So there is some resistance, and we've got to deal with that. But even if we set aside enough vaccines for all who need them and haven't asked for them yet, and do the boosters, and do 3 million 12 to 15-year-olds and get them vaccinated twice, which is 6 million vaccinations, we still have millions of vaccines left over. And by Christmas, that will be 100 million. If we don't airlift them to Africa and elsewhere, it could be 200 million because of the delays in getting them to people. And that is an excess above all the other vaccinations that we still want to see happen in the United Kingdom.
What do you think of these anti-vaxxers with their bullhorns who wander around shopping centres on a Saturday intimidating people and saying that it's a government ploy to try and tag us all?
Well, look, I admire those people who are not in politics and not really in public life in the political sphere, who've gone out and said, as individuals like Gareth Southgate, get vaccinated. And I think we need role models to appeal to young people and to the rest of the community not to listen to these anti-vaxxers, because already we have proved that 100,000 lives have been saved in Britain as a result of vaccination. And if you think ahead to the next year, the estimate is that 1 million deaths will happen across the world unless we get vaccinations to people. And that's a huge figure of wasted lives as a result of having wasted vaccines. And so we really have to act to persuade people to get the vaccination, but also to use the vaccines we've got. Sarah Gilbert, who was one of the inventors of the AstraZeneca vaccine, she has been appealing to people to get the vaccination and to get the vaccines out to the rest of the world. So people that everybody can respect for their genius and for their scientific achievement, and people in the world of sport and so on, are appealing to people to get vaccination. I make that appeal today as well.
Let me ask you, as a former Prime Minister, while I've got you, you've seen this big argument that's developing between us and the French at the moment because they had done a deal with the Australians to have submarines, diesel-powered submarines, and we've gone behind their backs, the French would say, and done a deal with the Americans to provide them with nuclear submarines. Would you have done it in that way if you'd still been Prime Minister?
Well, I think we could have done it better, just as we could have done the Afghanistan exit a lot better. And I think there are lessons to learn. And I hope when Boris Johnson meets President Biden, they'll discuss how the whole of the West can work more closely together. But I think France also has an issue here. They want to, if you like, to have strategic autonomy in Europe. And so they will build this up as an argument against working just with NATO. They want a sort of French-led European defence capacity. So I think France has its own motives for building this up, but I think we've got to learn to work better together. There is a standoff with China at the moment. If the West cannot unite and say what it wants to see done, then I don't think we're going to be in a very strong position to influence world events. And America, and I think Boris Johnson should say this to Joe Biden tomorrow, America used to act unilaterally because it was a unipolar age and they had complete hegemony. Now we're in a multipolar age and they've got to work with other countries, and Britain and America's partnership is really important to that. So I hope on practical decisions that are made tomorrow when Boris Johnson meets President Biden, we can see the alliances working far better than they did in Afghanistan.
But how concerned are you that, our closest defence ally in the form of the French have withdrawn their ambassadors from Australia and also from the US and have pulled out of defence talks with the United Kingdom later on in the week? Now, they're French. They might be a little bit sulky about it, but they are our closest defence allies. We do need to work with them while organisations like the Americans are keeping an eye on what's happening in the Far East.
Yeah, well, as I've said, I think this is more to do with French domestic politics. I think President Macron is asserting the importance that he attaches to French involvement in the defence of the West and the defence of the world. And I think this will blow over pretty quickly, in my view. But what we've got to watch is that there's a split over time between the French wanting to take Europe one way and the Americans, Britain and NATO wanting to go another way. I think that's something.
We must leave it there, Mr. Brown. I'm so sorry we're out of time. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. Thank you.